Imagine waking up tomorrow as the most powerful person on earth. Millions wait for your command. Entire armies rise or fall because of your words. Kings fear your decisions. Now ask yourself this. What would you do with that kind of power? Would you spend your days chasing pleasure? Would you make your enemies suffer? Or would you spend your nights writing reminders about how to become a better human being? That sounds impossible. Yet one man actually lived that life. His name was Marcus Aurelius. More than 2,000 years after his death, people all over the world are still searching one simple question. Who was Marcus Aurelius? The answer is far more surprising than you might imagine. And if you stay until the end, you'll discover why a man who ruled the greatest empire on earth is remembered today, not for his throne, but for a small book he never intended anyone else to read. Marcus Aurelius was born in Rome in the year 121 AD. He wasn't born an emperor. He wasn't even born expecting to become one. His family was wealthy and respected, giving him a comfortable life that most people could only dream about. But unlike many children raised with privilege, Marcus wasn't fascinated by luxury. While others admired expensive clothes and grand celebrations, Marcus admired discipline. He preferred simplicity. He trained himself to endure discomfort. Some stories even tell us that as a young boy, he chose to sleep on the floor because he believed comfort could make a person weak. That may sound unusual today, but even then, people noticed something different about him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't chasing attention. He was quietly preparing himself for a life he couldn't yet see. Little did he know, someone important was watching. At that time, the Roman Empire was the most powerful civilization in the world. Its emperor, Hadrian, faced a difficult problem. Who would one day lead the empire? The future of millions depended on that decision. Through a series of carefully planned adoptions and political arrangements, Marcus Aurelius was eventually chosen as one of the young men who would inherit that enormous responsibility. Imagine hearing those words. One day, you will rule the world. Most people would celebrate. Most would become proud. Marcus did neither. Instead, he studied even harder. He surrounded himself with great teachers. He learned philosophy. He practiced patience. He trained his mind every single day because he understood something many leaders never do. Power doesn't create character. Power reveals it. Years passed. Then, at the age of 40, Marcus Aurelius became emperor of Rome. Many people imagine becoming emperor meant endless luxury. But for Marcus, his greatest struggles were only beginning. Almost immediately, the empire was surrounded by war. Enemies attacked from several borders. Entire armies had to defend Rome. As if that weren't enough, a deadly plague swept through the empire. Cities emptied. Families were destroyed. Thousands became tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. Every morning brought terrible news. Imagine carrying the lives of millions on your shoulders. Every decision could save lives or cost them. Most rulers would have become bitter. Some would have become cruel. Others would have broken under the pressure. Marcus Aurelius chose something almost unbelievable. He chose to master himself. Instead of complaining about circumstances, he reminded himself that while he couldn't control events, he could always control his response. Those weren't empty words. He lived them. Even while leading armies across freezing frontiers. Even while grieving personal losses. Even while disease spread across his empire. He kept returning to one simple question. How should a good person respond to this? That question became the foundation of his entire life. But here's the part almost nobody knew while he was alive. Late at night, after meetings, after battles, after endless responsibilities, Marcus Aurelius would sit alone with nothing but a lamp and his thoughts. Then he would write. Not speeches, not laws, not messages for the Roman people. He wrote private reminders to himself. Sometimes he reminded himself not to lose his temper. Sometimes he reminded himself that people would lie, betray, criticize, and disappoint him. Sometimes he reminded himself that death comes for everyone, including emperors. He wasn't trying to sound wise. He wasn't trying to become famous. He was simply trying to become better than he was yesterday. Think about that for a moment. The most powerful man in the world wasn't writing about conquering others. He was writing about conquering his own mind. Those private notes would later become one of the most influential books ever written. Today, we know it as Meditations. The incredible part is this: Marcus Aurelius never intended anyone else to read it. He wasn't writing for history. He wasn't writing for fame. He was writing to survive his own struggles. Maybe that's exactly why those words feel so honest even today. Because they weren't written to impress anyone. They were written during sleepless nights, moments of doubt, and times of unbearable pressure. As the years passed, Marcus continued leading Rome through crisis after crisis. He spent much of his life far from luxurious palaces. Instead, he lived with his soldiers near dangerous frontiers where war never seemed to end. Finally, in the year 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius became seriously ill. Many historians believe it was the same plague that had devastated the empire. Knowing his time was coming to an end, he accepted death with the same calmness he had practiced throughout his life. He died not as a man obsessed with glory, but as a man who had spent decades learning how to govern himself. His empire would eventually decline. Its palaces would crumble. Its armies would disappear. Its rulers would be forgotten. Yet somehow, Marcus Aurelius never disappeared. More than 2,000 years later, people still open Meditations searching for guidance. Entrepreneurs, athletes, military leaders, students, parents, ordinary people trying to survive extraordinary challenges. Why? Because fear still exists. Failure still exists. Loss still exists. Anger still exists. And the advice Marcus Aurelius quietly wrote to himself still speaks to those same struggles today. Perhaps that's why history remembers him differently from almost every emperor who ever lived. He wasn't remembered because he owned the most land. He wasn't remembered because he commanded the largest army. He wasn't remembered because he built the biggest palace. He was remembered because, in a world obsessed with conquering others, he chose first to conquer himself. So, who was Marcus Aurelius? He was a Roman emperor, a philosopher, a soldier, a husband, a father, a man who carried unimaginable responsibility. But above everything else, he was proof that true greatness doesn't begin with power. It begins with character. And maybe that's why his story continues to inspire millions of people who have never worn a crown. Because whether you lead an empire, a business, a family, or simply yourself, the greatest battle you'll ever fight isn't against the world. It's the one inside your own mind. If Marcus Aurelius' story changed the way you think about strength, leadership, or success, I'd love to know which part stayed with you the most. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're curious about the forgotten lives, hidden wisdom, and timeless lessons history still has to teach, make sure you're here for the next story.